Welcome to Days Lattes, the podcast where we blend the world of law and business with a warm cup of information and common sense. I'm your host, Sidney, attorney, real estate investor, and business owner. Each week, we'll be your go-to source for legal insights, business advice, and so much more. Whether you're a seasoned professional, an ambitious entrepreneur, or simply someone seeking guidance, we'll have you covered. From navigating the legal landscape to empowering you with valuable business strategies, we'll explore the legal side of life and enjoy a virtual latte along the way. So, grab your favorite latte, get comfortable, and let's dive in to Days Lattes. Welcome back to Days Lattes. I'm your host, Sidney Whelan, founder of the Whelan Law Firm, serving North Central Missouri businesses and families in 3 convenient locations, Moberly, Carrollton, and Paris. Today is a very special day. This is our 100th episode. Reaching 100 episodes is certainly something worth celebrating, but today isn't really about looking backward. It's about looking ahead. When I started this podcast, I simply wanted to share legal knowledge in a way that felt approachable. I wanted to help people understand estate planning, business ownership, trust, succession planning, and the legal issues that impact everyday lives. Along the way, something unexpected happened. I realized that the conversations my clients were having weren't really about legal documents. They were about dreams. They were about families. They were about businesses built through decades of sacrifice. Those conversations were about farms that had been in the family for generations. They were about women discovering they were capable of far more than they had ever imagined. They were about parents wondering whether their children would be prepared. Not just prepared to inherit assets, but to steward them wisely. Over the last 100 episodes, I've learned something that has become the foundation of everything I believe. People don't come to my office because they need paperwork. They come because they're trying to protect something that they love. Sometimes it's a business. Sometimes it's a marriage. Sometimes it's a child. Sometimes it's the family farm. Sometimes it's a lifetime of hard work. And sometimes it's simply the hope that what they've built won't disappear when they're gone. That's why today I want to introduce what I believe will define not only the next 100 episodes of this podcast, but the next chapter of my own life. 3 simple ideas: build it, protect it, and pass it on. Everything we talk about on this podcast fits into one of those 3 principles. First, build it. Our country was built by builders, people willing to take risks, people who started businesses with little more than a determination and a willingness to work harder than everyone else. Builders create opportunities, not just for themselves, but for everyone around them. Whether you're starting your first business, buying some rental property, expanding a family farm, opening a coffee shop, inventing a product, or writing your first book, you're building something that didn't exist before. I believe entrepreneurship is one of the greatest acts of optimism there is. It says, I always believe tomorrow can be better than today. But building isn't limited to businesses. You build a reputation, trust, friendships. You build a marriage. You build children with character, communities. You build a life. Then comes the second principle: protect it. This is where my legal career has taught me some of the life's hardest lessons. I've watched families lose businesses because they never had operating agreements. I've seen inheritances disappear because someone never signed a will. I've watched successful entrepreneurs pay taxes they didn't need to pay because they never asked the right questions. I've seen farms divided because no one had difficult conversations while they still could. Protection isn't pessimism. Protection is stewardship. It's recognizing that if something is valuable enough to build, it's valuable enough to protect. Protection means having insurance, the right kind and enough. Protection means asset protection. Protection means having good contracts. Protection means estate planning. And it means choosing the right business structure. It means preparing for what we hope never happens. The third principle is one I hope people remember long after I'm gone, and that is pass it on. Every client eventually asks some version of that same question. What happens when I'm no longer here? The legal answer is one thing. The life answer is often sometimes entirely different. What are you passing on besides your money? Are you passing on wisdom, faith, work ethic, integrity? How about generosity or gratitude? Will your children inherit values that are stronger than the assets? Because remember, money without wisdom rarely survives more than one generation. A true legacy isn't measured by what people receive. It's measured by who they become because of what you've invested in them. As I look toward the future, I realize this podcast has become much bigger than legal education. It's becoming a conversation about intentional living, about leadership, about stewardship, about entrepreneurship, and about financial confidence. It's a conversation about building families, businesses, communities, and lives that matter. So today, I'd like to make you a promise. The next 100 episodes will be even more intentional. You'll hear about conversations with entrepreneurs who started with almost nothing, women who refuse to let fear define their future, financial experts who will help simplify complex decisions. You'll hear from business leaders, farm families, investors, authors, community builders, people who have built extraordinary lives, not because everything went perfectly, but because they kept showing up. We'll talk and continue to talk about the law because good legal planning matters. But we'll also talk about courage and resilience, leadership and faith, generosity, health, purpose, because none of those subjects exist in isolation. They're all connected. If you've been listening since episode 1, thank you very much. If today is your very first episode, welcome. I truly believe you're here for a reason. I don't want this podcast to simply be something you listen to on your commute. I want it to become a community, a place where builders encourage builders, where women gain confidence, where entrepreneurs learn from one another, where families begin difficult conversations before a crisis forces them to, where ordinary people discover they're capable of extraordinary things. My hope is that together we'll build something much larger than just a podcast. We'll build a movement that believes success isn't measured only by income. It's measured by impact, by stewardship, by generosity, and it's measured by the people we lift as we climb, and by the legacy that we leave behind. As we close this 100th episode, I'd like to leave you with one challenge. Ask yourself 3 questions this week. What am I building? What do I need to protect? And what will I pass on someday? If you'll answer those 3 questions honestly, and then act on those answers, you'll be living intentionally. And intentional lives create lasting legacies. Thank you for believing in this podcast. And thank you for allowing me to be part of your journey. The best chapters are still ahead. Until next time, remember this. Build it with courage, protect it with wisdom, and pass it on with generosity. Because the greatest legacy you'll ever leave isn't simply what you own. It's the lives you influence. And that's worth building. I'll see you next time here on Days and Lattes. Have a great week, my friends.
This podcast episode contains general information for discussion purposes only. Each case is different and must be judged on its own merits. Missouri rules generally prohibit lawyers from advertising that they specialize in particular areas of the law. This show should not be construed to suggest such specialization. Nothing on this show should be taken as legal advice for any individual case or situation. This information is not intended to create an attorney-client relationship, and the listening or viewing of this podcast does not constitute an attorney-client relationship. The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements.